We are all going to die, all of us. What a circus. That alone should make us love each other, but it doesn't. We are terrorized and flattened by trivialities. We are eaten up by nothing. Charles Bukowski. Hello, and welcome to Impera Project, a project built on a dream. Long time no see, dear friends and philosophy enthusiasts. We know we haven't seen each other in this long format for quite a while, almost a year. Stay tuned, for we did not forget about this channel. Big changes are coming to the format of our videos as we constantly seek to improve and create a better community for all of us. Recently, we read a very interesting book. The captain is out to launch and the sailors have taken over the ship, by none other than the brilliant Charles Bukowski. Now, we are very big fans of this dirty old man and we've yet to make a video about him, and now's the time. Charles Bukowski was the main actor of some of the most interesting events and adventures, although not willingly. But this book of his, a journal nonetheless, tells a sad story about the end of an era, and we are here to talk about it. But before we start this video, don't forget to leave a like, share and subscribe to Impera Project if you want to see more in-depth analysis and free philosophy courses that are explained in a simple language. Also, in our short feed, you can find 1-minute explanation and analysis of different characters or events from movies, video games and so on. Take a look. Thank you very much for your time, and now, without any further ado, let's start. Perhaps hard to understand or even harder to believe, but Charles Bukowski had a long run. He was born in 1920 and died in 1994. His life is profoundly influenced by geopolitical events that shaped the history of mankind. His family left Germany and lived in the USA. He saw the rise and fall of the Nazis and got to use the Macintosh to write this book. He can also be seen in a picture wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. Although he had a pretty miserable life filled with bad addictions such as tobacco and alcohol, he lived to see the beautiful age of 74. He talked favorably about many writers such as Hemingway and Camus and made fun of Sartre. We couldn't find proof, but it seems that Sartre was actually considering Bukowski the best American poet. Now that we have a bit of background, the last years of Bukowski, starting in 1991, are written by him in his journalesque work The Captain is Out to Launch and the Sailors Have Taken Over the Ship. His last years were peaceful as he enjoyed the life he deserved, living from his writings together with his wife and 9 cats. Although sick up until the last written page dating 1993, he seemed to have kept his vitality. But something else can be said about his writings, and a small hint of nostalgia and at times downright sadness can be distinguished in these pages. The end of his life found Charles Bukowski looking back to the past and seeing, displeased, how the world has changed from the early beginnings of the century. His life was, without a doubt, full of uncertainty and struggles, but he looks back to it pleased that things went the way they went. A great deal of the book is a commentary of the absurdities of modern life, such as the personal computer replacing the old writing machine and how an old man has to learn how to use it, back when computers weren't such a commonplace occurrence. From the first recording, we can see how people pestered Bukowski for autographs, but they would actually come without a pen or paper just to meet him. "We just want your autograph," said the blonde guy. "Then we promise never to come back." Then he started giggling and holding his head. The girl just stared. "But none of you have a pen or even a piece of paper," I said. "Oh," said the blonde kid, taking his hands from his head. "We'll come back again with a book, maybe at a more proper time." Becoming famous was something Bukowski deserved from the very beginning, but even in wealth he kept his attitude. He concludes this meeting with, "The reader and the best human is the one who rewards me with his or her absence." A very interesting insight into the loneliness that has characterized Bukowski for so many years. Given his lifestyle and somewhat questionable life choices, it is not surprising that Bukowski has danced with death many times in his life. We can all say that his entire life was an endless waltz on the edge of existence, and it is only normal that at the end of this dance one pondered death itself. Many times in the book, Bukowski talks about his relationship with death. Many times in this book, Bukowski has noted that his life should have ended 30 years ago. And yet, it was an anomaly that he still lived. Indeed, the intricacies of one's lifespan are indeed a matter worth discussing. Here is what he said about death. Most people are not ready for death, theirs or anybody else's. It shocks them, terrifies them, it's like a great surprise, hell, it should never be. I carry death in my left pocket, sometimes I take it out and talk to it. Hello baby, how you doing? When you coming for me? I'll be ready. There is nothing to mourn about death any more than there is to mourn about the growing of a flower. What is terrible is not death, but the lives people live or don't live up until their death. Obviously, his life was far from boring, unpleasant, but filled with things and events that most people don't really experience. Or if they do, we simply pass by them without thinking too much. His life was full of problems, not invented ones, but true problems that most of us wouldn't be able to deal with. In this page, he also talks about God and how people see it, Charles Bukowski being an atheist. Their minds are full of cotton. They swallow God without thinking, they swallow country without thinking. Soon they forget how to think, they let others think for them. Wild as it was, Charles' life was the true definition of freedom. But as we can all see, freedom is always paid in blood, either yours or others. Bukowski's work always invites the readers, to put it kindly, to think for themselves and to keep enduring and building up resilience. Life in the perspective of Bukowski is a boxing match where each fighter should try to hit harder than life itself. On his funeral stone we can see a boxer. Between his birth year and death year, and in many works of his we can find this allegory of a boxing match. But a boxing match in which one has to fight alone, and ideas, good as they are sometimes, might hinder one's ability to think for himself. Perhaps the best way to put it can be found in this following form. Death comes to those who wait and to those who don't. The death of Charles Bukowski happened in 1994. The year 2000 was creeping ever near and everything started to change pretty fast. The Iron Curtain has fallen and the Soviet Union disbanded. The end of the Cold War ushered a new era of supposed prosperity. Yet Bukowski wasn't believing these lies. In a page from his journal in which he was expressing his concern related to the small amount of people who came at a big horse racing event, Bukowski notes, "It's only inter-track wagering, it's the economy. Things are worse than the government or the press will admit. Those who are still alive in the economy are keeping quiet about it. I have to guess that the biggest business going is the sale of drugs. Hell, take that away and almost all the young would be unemployed." This was written in 1991, 1 year after the recession of 1990, 1 year before Bill Clinton took office. With unemployment rising, it is only normal that people would have less money to spend, but Bukowski's keen eye was seeing something else. At the same time, there is a crust of living rich on top of the rot. Isn't it astonishing? Some people have so damn much money they don't even know how much they have, and I'm talking millions. And look at Hollywood, turning out $60 million movies as idiotic as the poor fools who go to see them. The rich are still there, they've always found a way to milk the system. No matter how bad the situation is in the capitalist world, there will always be some people that manage to milk the economy and earn their money by taking advantage of a poorly designed system. And there is no better person to see that than the one who had nothing from the very beginning. This page of the journal is absolutely beautiful in addressing the problems of those years compared to the early days of the 20th century. There is a whole fragment in which Bukowski explains how good it was after the war. To put it simply, we thought those days and nights would never end. And why should they? And perhaps that is indeed how most of us see the world. We often don't realize that a certain time we live in might actually be a good time in our lives. A sad reality that we discovered way too late. The end of the 20th century retired many aspects of life so far, but probably one that Bukowski could consider personal was the slow but sure decline of horse racing. As someone on the internet put it, horses are about as relevant to most people nowadays as pterodactyls. But to put it more pragmatically, it was the end of an industry of entertainment. From what we understand, these tracks were gambling dens, but also social places, and when they closed, many people lost something dear to them. Bukowski sees the end of horse racing and notes, "At the track, they are going to start laying off people at the concession stands, the parking lots and in the business office and in maintenance. Purses for races will decline, smaller fields, less jokes. a lot less laugher. Capitalism has survived communism, now it eats itself away. It's fascinating to consider how someone who not only endured but eventually thrived during the rise of late-stage capitalism could perceive its potential collapse. The very mechanisms that allowed capitalism to thrive, endless growth, innovation, and the pursuit of profit, could also sow the seeds of its downfall. Bukowski's writing touched on themes that many modern thinkers have expanded upon: the increasing concentration of wealth among the few, the erosion of middle-class stability, and the commodification of nearly every aspect of life. As the enemies of capitalism die one by one, there is only one enemy left: capitalism itself. Charles Bukowski's life and work stand as a testament to resilience, raw honesty, and an unflinching critique of the world around him. His words challenge us to confront life's absurdities, to think for ourselves, and to endure in the face of hardship. As the 20th century drew to a close, Bukowski foresaw the cracks in a society chasing progress at the expense of its humanity. His observations on freedom, capitalism, and the fleeting nature of joy remain eerily relevant today, urging us to question the systems we live in and the lives we lead. So, perhaps his greatest lesson is this: life, like a boxing match, is unpredictable and relentless. But as Bukowski himself proved, it's worth stepping into the ring, finding your own rhythm, and throwing your punches your way. If you enjoyed this reflection on Bukowski's legacy, don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to Impera Project. Let us know in the comments what do you think Bukowski would say about the world today. Thank you very much for your time.